Hi, this is Lori, and the focus of the presentation for this week is using Westlaw to research the Federal Code of Regulations. I did post on Blackboard some videos about researching the Code of Federal Regulations at some different websites, but my presentation will focus on using Westlaw. Students have access to Westlaw, but only through the College of Lake County libraries. You cannot go to westlaw.com because you do not have a password. So in order to use Westlaw, you will have to log into the College of Lake County, to the library, and one way you can do this is start your research and find the link for paralegal and law. Click on paralegal. And while we're here, I can explain or demonstrate to you, you have links provided by the library at the paralegal homepage for different databases. The one that we are going to focus on in this presentation is using Westlaw Next. Once you click on Westlaw Next, you get access to Westlaw. Now, I have already logged in. I am not on campus making this presentation. If you are on campus, you do not need to have your student identification number to access Westlaw. If you are not on campus, you can access Westlaw through the College of Lake County's library, but you will need to use your student identification number. Westlaw is a protected database, so you will need your student identification number. I will caution you as well that I find that when I use my iPad that I cannot access the database, and I think on my laptop I had some difficulty. So for me, I was more successful accessing the Westlaw database using my desktop. So I just want to caution you, if you have some problems, change devices, or should say, don't contact me until you have tried to maybe do that on a different device or contact the library. With that being said, once you access the Westlaw database, you have a box, a search box like you would at Google, to enter citations and terms to research databases. I am going to demonstrate how to find rules and regulations by three methods. One is by entering a citation. Two will be by table of contents, and three will be by entering words in the search box. So I'm going to go back to the initial Westlaw homepage, and if you notice on this homepage there's a link for regulations. If you click regulations, that brings us to the Code of Federal Regulations database. But let's pretend first that initially you were giving a citation. A citation is the address to the source of information that you're looking for, and since we are using the federal regulations, I have a citation here to Title 21. The Code of Federal Regulations is organized by title, so title is always first in the citation. CFR is for Code of Federal Regulations, and I have 101.91 is the citation that I want you to find. So I enter that citation, I click enter, and the service takes me directly to the Code of Federal Regulations, Title 21, Section 101.91. Anytime you have a citation, you can enter it in this particular search box, and the service will take you directly to that information, or to that citation. Let's talk about the results that you have found. This is the Code of Federal Regulations. Title 21 is Food and Drugs. We are in Chapter 21 of Title 21. Subpart A, Food for Human Consumption. Part 101, Food Labeling. Specific requirements for description claims that are neither nutrient content claims or health claims. If I want the language of the actual regulation, we're in the gluten-free labeling of food. So if we wanted to know how a product can be labeled gluten-free, this tells us. Definition: the term gluten contains this information and then we browse through the rest of the language here. So that's finding information about gluten-free labeling by using a citation. However, if I did not have a citation and I wanted to find out about gluten-free labeling, I could do one of two other methods. I could research the table of contents or use a word search. So let's look at table of contents method. You need to find the database. Let's find Code of Federal Regulations. And this is the table of contents. As I mentioned, the Code of Federal Regulations is organized by title. Those different titles have different subjects. If we know that gluten-free is relevant to food and drugs, we want to click on Title 21, Food and Drugs, and then we can continue to browse here to find out which of these sections might be relevant to what we're looking for. So Food and Drug Administration, Department of Health and Human Services, Drug Enforcement, that would not be relevant. Office of National Drug Control Policy, that would not be relevant. So we know that Chapter 1 has to be where we're looking for our information, and particularly gluten-free is relevant to food for human consumption. I click on Subpart B, and now I would have to browse through the table of contents here and determine which one is relevant to gluten-free. Now, gluten-free is not in any of the section titles here. So if I didn't already know the citation, I would literally click on these different sections and browse through the information that's provided and determine if I'm finding the source that I need to find. If I click on Labeling Requirements and Guidelines, I find this is about raw food and vegetables, This isn't what I want to find. I can go back to my labeling. I should say go back to food labeling and actually back to food for human consumption and continue to browse. And then that's how we get to, let's say, subpart F, that we then see 101.91 gluten-free labeling of food. I can click here for information. I can also, I'll go back, click on this little document and it brings up the information in more. Well, in this instance it's not as much in document view because it's not that long anyway. So that's finding the gluten-free section by using the table of contents. What if we wanted to skip all that and just use the words gluten-free? So we log on to Westlaw. We must, if you're using words, you have to use or refine your search to a database. So let's look at the wrong way to search by words, or the incorrect way to search by words. We log on to Westlaw, we're at the home page. The database here is federal, which means any word we type here will search all of the federal sources. So let's click on gluten-free labels. And when we do that, wow, we get cases, statutes, regulations, secondary sources, and briefs. Now we can click on regulations and we do get gluten-free labeling of food. Now that's one way to do a word search. And in this instance you see, because we did a word search, you see your words highlighted to let you know the context in which the gluten-free labeling is used in that particular regulation. Let's start all over again, because while that didn't take a lot of effort in our results, it is always best to immediately narrow down your database if you know the database that you need to be in. Since we need the Federal Code of Regulations, I'm going to click on the Federal Code of Regulations and put in gluten-free. Now, what's interesting, and maybe I should spell that, or actually they did correct that for me here. When we spell it right, or they give us the correction, then we immediately get section 101.91 gluten-free labeling of food. And again, you have the sections of the regulations here. So those are the steps for using the Code of Federal Regulations. If you have a citation will be, let me click on here, the citation to the Code of Federal Regulations will always include the title, the abbreviation to the Code of Federal Regulations, which is CFR, and the section number. So if you have a citation, you can enter the citation in the search box. If you don't have a citation, you certainly can research the table of contents of the Code of Regulations. If you don't want to research the table of contents, you certainly can do a word search, and that brings you to the regulations. If you're in a set of regulations and you want to browse through them, that's what these green arrows are for. You can go forward, you can go backwards, in the Code of Federal Regulations. If you are in a particular place and you want to see the table of contents of that particular Code of Federal Regulations, you can click on the table of contents, and that allows you to browse through the entire Code of Federal Regulations. It starts off with the section or the title where you're currently conducting your research. Those are the basics. Your homework assignment has you going through some of the very same steps I just went through to find some information and provide some answers. I think that is enough to give you a general idea on how to do basic steps on finding the Federal Code of Regulations. Next week we will discuss, or I will discuss, how to use Westlaw to find the Illinois Code of Regulations. So with that, good luck and have a wonderful week.